Hello, I'm Alan Berkson, and I'm joined as always by the Dr. Disruptive, Jonathan Yarmis, and this is Pardon My Disruption. As you know, we hear the second Friday of every month, and today we have a Friday the 13th, part 1. And
I think it occurs every, 20 or something like that years, we'll have consecutive Friday the 13th. So hopefully luck holds here at the Stamford Innovation Center.
So now it's easy to mark your calendar for the next Pardon My Disruption because it will be Friday the 13th in March. So I want to set the record straight because someone told me that Brian Williams has said he's appeared on our program. And I just want to make it clear that he has not appeared on our program.
Although we'd be more, now that he's got 6 months with nothing better to do, Brian, you're welcome to join us.
So we've got some nostalgic. Maybe we should start off with nostalgia.
Yes, being old timers ourselves, Radio Shack we hardly knew yet.
Oh wait, actually, but before I do that, I have to do a shout out to we're broadcast here live from the Stamford Innovation Center in beautiful downtown Stamford, Connecticut.
It has nothing on Burbank or everything on Burbank.
And we have an audience here.
The audience. And sitting room only.
Sitting room only. Welcome you to bring your lunch and join us anytime. So
usually the second Friday of every month, but anytime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So you worked at Radio Shack.
I worked at Radio Shack.
Yeah. Shed a tear.
No, I said it here before. We used to. Our joke was yesterday's technology at tomorrow's prices.
Yeah. But they had when you needed it, Radio Shack reminds us that in this world where overnight delivery and so on is important, there are times when you need things now. And with the loss of Radio Shack, and they're not completely gone, but with the loss of Radio Shack, there are a whole bunch of things where when I needed it, you needed a battery, you needed a connector. That's batteries. Where you, yeah.
Look, so when I worked at Radio Shack, people came in for batteries, they came in for plugs. My favorite was when they would come in, someone would come in and say to me, I need an adapter. And I'd say, okay. And they'd say, for my stereo. Okay, see that wall? Those are all, an adapter plug. There's the wall. But that was it. You wanted to have, you wanted to go from RCA to mini, RCA to the quarter-inch. You had everything.
Yeah, but it's also, to elevate the discussion, it's a harsh reminder of the inexorable pace of technology. And it used to be you didn't have to necessarily be on the leading edge of technology, and you could build solid businesses. Here's a company that since introducing the Trash 80, the TRS 80, one of the early personal computers, probably missed every major technological advance and was late to the game in selling products and services.
It's a great point, because if I had a room of my peers and I said, raise your hand if your first computer was a Radio Shack computer, I'd say 90% of the hands are going to go up. No, they're not going to see it. There'll be some Apples or some,
That's where my Apple II Plus, 1979.
Right, I had a TRS 80 Model 1, 4K. Yeah. So there they were, and they kept up with coming out with new technology, but that somehow they just.
They were eventually late to the game. Other people started, doing other things because they tried to be all things to all people in a small store. And as new things came out, it created new opportunities that other people capitalized on better. They were small stores, and we started going with showroom-like things, hence, Best Buy and Circuit City. Circuit City, obviously, just the whole challenges of any kind of physical retail space. I think Best Buy is an interesting one who's hanging on and maybe even making a bit of a comeback.
But I would argue that Best Buy was not a direct competitor. It was those small parts.
Yes.
That's where they made all their money. The capacitors and the resistors and the all the little pieces for the hobbyists. That was their, because I was there. That's what people were buying.
Yes.
And my average sale was like $9.
Yeah, and the challenge for a business like that is physically I'm constrained by the amount of inventory that makes economic sense. So I'm only going to have so much, whereas, an online experience, if you don't need it now, I can go to Amazon, who has infinite inventory and can get it to me, if I'm a Prime customer, within 2 days.
Right.
So, that certainly ate away at things.
No, I think need it now is probably the operative word. If you had to get some, I need this. Where do I go? Oh, let's just go to Radio Shack and get it.
Yeah. But a lot of their business, back then with all of those parts, wasn't necessarily needed now. It's like, okay, I'm going to do a project. Let me assemble some things.
Right.
And the whole need it now space, I think, is another fascinating area for discussion. That I often talk about how in the technology industry we have a tendency to overstate things in the near term, yet understate things in the medium to long term. If we look at the things that were laughable around the turn of the century, one of the things that was laughable was webvan.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You want everything now, and who would ever think you could make a business of, delivering things now? And we laughed at that as one of the excesses of Internet Bubble 1. Yet where are we today? And where we are is you've got some really big players, like the biggest companies in retail, the biggest companies in the world, Amazon, Walmart, Google, all thinking about Uber, thinking about, how can we deliver things now? You want it, I'll get it to you within 2 hours. And
right.
So that's a trend. I think we're again overstating it in the near term, where we laugh about drone delivery of pizzas and stuff. But 5 years from now, I'm not saying we're going to see drones all over the world, but 5 years from now, we will have a robust infrastructure for same-day delivery of significant amounts of goods.
Right.
And that there are these really big companies. And one of the reasons why Amazon is building more and more distribution centers, they for their second-day delivery business, they don't need distribution centers more than a couple of places, because they can get it to you second day easily enough.
Right.
You need distribution centers closer to customers if you're planning same-day delivery. And make no mistake about it, that is absolutely where they're going. Walmart is looking at it as an essential element of its future strategy.
So here's a question for you, because Radio Shack, you never saw their products realistic.
Yeah,
you never saw their products,
own brand. Yeah.
But you never saw their products at the top of consumer lists of these are the best products, but they had longevity. And so is this a case of disruption in the sense that they were able to, they're providing this need for immediate gratification, and that was their sole competitive advantage?
I'm not sure. It was not only immediacy, it was exclusivity. The things they had, you had nowhere else to go. They had a great exclusive business. And when a lot of the things that would seem to be natural for them to sell.
If you wanted to get a scanner.
Yeah.
Or, a police scanner.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And I have one.
And not only that, but I remember every spring we'd have our entire floor would be full with, can you guess?
Just radio controlled vehicle. Oh, spring.
In the spring.
No.
Antennas.
Oh.
Roof antennas. And they put them on sale. They were like $20, and they would just go. They'd be out the door in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Because after the bad weather, everybody lost their antennas. They needed to come in and get their new roof antenna.
Yeah. But what they really had was exclusivity. There were a large number of things they sold that they were really the only reliable out. You might find it in some retail, some hardware stores might have, but it was a reliable place and the only place you would go for certain things. And in the era of the internet, exclusivity is a non-existent thing. We've seen people continue to try and do that. So retailers hate price comparison. So they ask manufacturers to give them SKUs that are slightly different to confound price comparison shoppers. good luck with that. You know, I mean, there are a whole bunch of things. It's funny watching retailers try and cling to the last vestige of the old model. You know, one of my pet peeves about this, and you know, we'll tease that one out early. Delta Airlines has made some changes to their frequent flyer program, where they will no longer publish the award mileage structure, how many miles it costs. It's going to, it's going to change. It's going to be variable the same way tickets are, depending upon when you want to cash in your frequent flyer award. It will give you different amounts of miles, and there's no regularly published chart. And there are a whole bunch of things where they're doing it, you know, at some level, hoping to make it more favorable. They're trying to shift the equation by hiding information. And that's just a really stupid idea in my mind in this world.
That's a quote. That because that is a 20th century model is to shift your business model is based on hiding information. Yes. And that doesn't work anymore.
It doesn't. No. And not only does it not work, it's doomed to fail. It's also going to alienate people. So it's going to fail and it's going to piss people off. You know, I mean, if it pissed people off but worked, it would be okay. If it didn't work but it didn't piss somebody off, that might be okay. But it's not going to work, and it's going to piss people off.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Bad strategy.
But just the last thing for Radio Shack. So Radio Shack, I think another one of their success models is the fact that they were everywhere, and not just in urban areas, but they were in rural, and you know, they're all over the place. So they've got a value proposition of a footprint.
Yes, and that's, you know, these days half of physical retail. You know, why is Sears still worth something? Why did they acquire Kmart? You know, there are no value to the physical assets. The brand is tarnished. But real estate, and that's why Radio Shack, you know, is going to live on, because you know, maybe there'll be a smaller piece in somebody else's, you know, store. Although you look, physical retail is a tough business. You know, we're across the street from the Stamford Town Center. You know, Brookstone just closed in there. I honestly haven't checked to see if it's part of a, you know, larger Brookstone's having a, you know, similar problem selling weird stuff, you know, for which they're no longer exclusive. But
well, I thought that was really Hammaker Schlemmer. It was like they were like the best.
Yeah, but at least Hammaker Schlemmer, you know, there is a market to selling people who have money to waste.
Right.
You know, that's a much better business than
the name.
Yeah.
No, but there's one other
thing.
I
love the holiday catalog.
I did hear a rumor, and not that, I mean, we're not a news agency, so we could talk about rumors, that Amazon was looking to actually take some of these Radio Shack stores.
Yeah, you know, and they're
but not for delivery.
Right. Yeah, for just for distribution purposes.
No, actually, I think they want to. I think it has to do with they want to be able to have the same thing that Apple does, where you can bring in your Kindle Fire and your Echo and whatever, and your what's your who's the Gary Busey, my all-time favorite commercial. He's got a shell, and he's got the what's that thing called? Come on, somebody, the fire, the stick, the
TV stick.
What's that called?
Yeah,
that allows you the streaming device.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
He's got a shell and he's got that streaming device, and whatever. But to be able to service that and showcase and stuff like that.
Yeah, you know, or the other thing, you know, I think we're seeing more and more. It's great to have a virtual only business.
By the way, Amazon has to work on the branding for that. If I can remember the name.
Well, or not. You know, you just know it's the Amazon.
I know it's Amazon, and I know it's Gary Busey. So I have to if I Google Amazon and Gary Busey.
Yeah, or Google Amazon and television.
I'll find it.
You know, I mean, that's a whole other, you know, I could argue that's a successful branding thing. You know, if you remember, Acura used to have the Legend and the Integra and stuff like that. And they discovered that people knew all of the component brands, but didn't know it was Acura. And that's why Acura moved things to like the TL and the, you know, a series of unremarkable automobile names that had the effect of saying you were buying an Acura. And it didn't matter, you know, where in the product line it was an Acura. And I think You know, Amazon, I would consider that a success. But the other thing I was going to make the point, we've seen that more and more virtual companies are finding there's some value in a physical presence. You know,
Right.
Warby Parker is a great example. You know,
Right.
they were going to sell eyeglasses over the internet and opened a store in New York, and it's wildly exceeded their expectations, you know, for the number of people, not surprisingly, who want to walk in and try these things on and have the physical experience.
Right.
And so, you know, I think we'll see over time, most people, most is a big number, many, there's probably not enough physical real estate. Many large people who have virtual presences will experience high-end experiential kinds of
I think they should make it. I think they should make it a prime benefit and have a barista, and I can go in there and have a cup. Come on, right? Have a cup of coffee and some, you know, internet, and we're good to go.
Yeah, and that's, you know, how Barnes and Noble is going to survive. You know, you're not a bookstore anymore. The amount of space devoted to coffee versus books is a, you know, ever-shifting footprint, skewing towards coffee because there's more money in coffee than books.
So I think that, excuse me, that's enough for Radio Shack.
Yeah.
Enough nostalgia. So we'll go back to the future.
DeLorean. No.
Well, I was going to say Google Glass.
Oh, okay.
Now on this show, I'm pretty sure if we go back, you had when Google Glass came out, you said this is 1.0, and that it's a.
And you know, it's a wonderful vision of what's going to go on. You know, to bring my Gartner background into it, we talk about the hype cycle, and you go through a period of inflated expectations, and God knows that happened with glass. I mean, right. You know, Robert Scoble, I can't live without this thing. I even wear it into the shower. Yeah, right. You know, images that you just can't get out of your brain. But it's predictable that way overstated what we could do with this right now. And we're at a stage now where Google's basically pulled the plug on it. Right. And you know, we're now about to enter what we call the trough of disillusionment, where all those haters who said, I knew this sucked and was a bad idea, are going to come out and say, yeah, you know, we've got validation, this was a bad idea. No.
Well, when the user of a product has a derogatory nickname or moniker.
Yeah, yeah. A glass 4-letter. Yeah, yes. You know, but some of that is also, you know, a cultural thing, because people want to hold on to this notion that they've got some degree of privacy. So somebody wearing glasses that had a camera that's looking at you, you know, people felt their privacy was being invaded. Right. I actually find that one, you know, I'm totally okay with that, because when you're wearing that, I know you're wearing that. It's pretty clear there's a camera on your face. Right. You know, what you aren't aware of is the 23 cameras you walked by. Right. To get to see the person with the camera on their face. So so if you know, Samsung has the voice activation on their TVs that's listening all the time. Yes. You know, that's been in the news a lot this week, where people are like, oh my God, you know, have we no secrets? It's like, well, either leave it on and have the convenience, or turn it off and don't worry about it. Yes. You know, but if you turn it off and think you're safe, right. You know, you know, we're sitting here largely in an inside room, one window's covered by a curtain, one window's half open by a curtain. The technology exists that our talking is creating sound waves that are hitting against the glass pane. Right. Somebody sitting across the street can have a device that's measuring the movement of the glass and is deconstructing our speech just based on the impact on the glass. You know, and no, you know, it's not a $49.95 at Radio Shack. So is that a glass 4-letter word? Yeah, yeah. But you know, the truth of the matter is, increasingly, you know, I firmly believe that privacy is you know, a total illusion, and Yeah, it's great to go, oh, my TV's not watching, turn off the, it's like somebody who wants to listen to your conversation is going to listen to your conversation. There are other issues.
And that technology is becoming more accessible as every day passes, meaning it's cheaper and easier and more accessible.
Yeah, and there are always trade-offs in the value equation, So in addition to the Samsung TV, you've got the Amazon product, and I'm trying to...
Echo.
Yeah. There are a whole bunch of things that can listen in.
I can remember that one.
Yeah, wow. Well,
I don't know why.
Yeah, Echo.
I think it's because Brent has one and he talks about it.
Okay, yeah. And
Brent Leary, shout out to Brent Leary.
Yeah. But there are a whole bunch of things where the trade-off is going to be, I'm going to give up some amount of information / privacy in exchange for value and convenience. And where does that line come in? And I think one of the reasons why people are concerned about the Samsung TV is it doesn't seem to have that value risk equation right. The value of having a voice command TV compared to it's listening to everything I say.
What percentage of what it's processing is actually bringing value back to you?
Yes. Yeah.
And that's
very small percent. Yeah. And so, I think, inherent, implicit in what people are feeling is what is the risk reward equation? I know Facebook is selling my information all over the place, but I get to see pictures of kids and cats, and that's a great trade-off. I'm willing, silly, stupid trade-off, but it's like, I get perceived value and entertainment. And what they're selling doesn't seem to be terribly intrusive because it only results in, meaningless, ridiculous ads in the right margin that I'm pretty good at ignoring anyhow. Which actually, if I may tangent this a little bit.
Sure.
A common thing people are doing, to kind of shift that equation is use ad blocking technology. And ad block plus is one of the big products, and it's recently been disclosed that one of the things ad block is doing is going to advertisers and say, if you pay us, we won't block your ads. Their rationale.
They got both hands out.
But you're getting the service for free. How do you think they're making money?
There's no such thing as free. If it's free,
you are the product.
We've said it many times.
Yes.
But before we get off of Google Glass, though,
sure.
I want you to put your prognosticator hat on, because what's the future for Glass?
I love the future. I mean, there are just a whole bunch of things where
two things. There's the genre of a wearable device, but also in particular, what do you think Google's going to do next?
I expect, with technology, things just move at Moore's law kinds of things. There are a whole bunch of things that we're missing from the first generation, from an aesthetics perspective, and they've at least gotten the interest of the people who are in design and fashion. And I think when it comes to wearables, that's been clearly a missing element. The first generation of things are things, I'm happy to wear.
You mean the calculator watch you bought at Radio Shack?
Yes. Yeah. But the first generation of things are things that I'd be proud to wear because I was never going to be a fashion statement anyhow. And then the incremental, scorn I would get from wearing my Samsung gear, if I, wouldn't bother me because who was I fooling anyhow? It's like, yes, I'm a nerd. But to get to the next generation, these things are going to be fashion statements. And that's why, for instance, Apple's new head of retail, Angela Ahrens, came from Burberry, and they've hired some other, we're going to see the intersection of fashion and technology play a much more important role for the mainstream deployment of things like glass and other wearable forms of technology. So I think that's step number one. Step number two, we need more capability. That glass itself was a very crude first generation hardware and software But one of my dominant, next wave of disruption themes, for the last 10 years, we've been focused on social mobile analytics and cloud. One of my big next wave disruptive things is augmented reality. Right. And augmented reality is this notion, not just virtual reality as things, like the Oculus Rift, where I wear this big headset that gives me an immersive experience. Augmented reality says, how do I blend the physical and virtual world?
Well, a crude example is, whenever you see an android in a science fiction movie and they're looking at stuff and it's calculating stuff and giving you all sorts of supplemental information about what's going on.
Yeah, or more tangential, more, vivid thing we experience every Sunday, like the line, the first down line.
Yes, I hate when I go to the game and I don't know where the first down line is. Yeah,
and you see the running back come up 6 inches short, and it's like, didn't he see it? No, I see it. He didn't see it. Right. But the next generation, the football players who are wearing the visors to protect their face, that thing's going to be displaying information to them. And we're going to blend the physical with the virtual. Right. The best explanation.
That Bill Belichick will hack.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. Why not? They're already.
I still think Bill Belichick hacked the communications for the call for that last play. I'm just convinced.
Yeah.
Apologies to the Patriots fans. No, not really.
Yeah. The NFL may not have penalized you, but God, why do you think you've had 712 inches of snow in the last 20 days? Yeah. And it's still sounding like bitter grapes. They take that trade. Yeah. Would I trade 412 feet of snow for another Jet Super Bowl victory in my lifetime?
In your lifetime.
Yeah. I have modest ambitions, and I hope to live. My parents both. Today's the 5th anniversary of my father's passing, but he made it almost to 87. My mother's 87, and
so the Jets.
So I've got another 30 years.
So the Jets have some time.
Yeah.
All right, sorry. So, Google Glass. What do you think Google's going to do?
There are a whole bunch of things I think they are hugely committed to in terms of futures. First of all, what's their core business? Their core business is an advertising business. Damn. And the more opportunities they have for advertising impression, the better it is for them. Computers are a really good thing. These mobile devices are even better because it's got contextual information. So, this doesn't necessarily know where I am and gives a generic kind of experience. A mobile device has much more personal information. When you start talking about glass and its ability to, for them to sell contextual value, hugely contextual. And for those of us who live with glasses, it's the last thing I take off at night and the first thing I put on in the morning.
It's true.
Yeah. Few things get more personal than that. And so I think there are, amazing future opportunities.
So my glasses might be the one thing I spend more time with.
Yeah.
One device I spend more time with than my phone. I have my glasses more than my.
Yeah, and if you think of it, I think the phone still plays an important role because size brings with it constraints in terms of capability, power consumption, and so on. Right. So if we go back to an old client-server network, that's one of the discussions around phones. Rather around watches. Do I want my watch having the standalone capability to do 4G communications or Wi-Fi, and how much processing power is it going to be versus an extension of display, but there's real estate here.
There's power considerations.
Yeah, we're wearing these very low profile glasses that basically suggest that it's going to need an adjunct from a performance.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So it will, perhaps be mated to our phone and will be an input and output device, but we won't have a lot of local processing.
I/O and display.
Yes. Yes.
I/O and display. All right. So another topic that you put down here, which I just have to bring it up because it's Sports Illustrated. And it also has another one of my favorite commercials, which is Verizon's
half-fast.
But I'm curious. You talk about the Sports Illustrated swimsuit cover. Have markers crossed the line. And I'm curious what your thoughts on that.
Hell, my thoughts are, I'm 59 and a half. I can withdraw legally from my IRA now, but
the only reason why the half is relevant after the age of 3.
Yeah, yeah. But if you haven't seen this Sports Illustrated swimsuit cover, there are two things that, to me, I won't say are shocking, but are on the far side of a border. Number one is they've always had people wearing bathing suits. Now they have the swimsuit model where she is got her bathing suit pulled down as low as it can be without confirming the fact that she's female. And that's my polite way of putting it. And number two, they've got some suggestively double entendre verbiage on the cover of the magazine.
Right.
And what I think is and this has implications for marketers. We're starting to push some lines in terms of what's acceptable and what's not, and things that, I had a negative visceral reaction to Verizon's half-fast campaign.
Right.
One of it relates to the fact that I can't believe anybody's going to believe that upload speed being the same as download speed matters to them. Unless you're someone like Adrian who's uploading gigabyte-sized videos for production. The number of people who need really high-speed upload capabilities are few and far between. So they've got a stupid campaign that's appealing to people's ignorance, and they're doing it in a way that, if they said half-assed,
but it's really funny.
Well, we disagree there.
Right, but well, actually, to take it a step further, I would argue that their internet bandwidth is not the bottleneck in any performance. Is likely not the bottleneck. It's probably their device or their local network.
Yeah. So it even makes the claim more stupid.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, I agree that most people don't realize the impact or the lack of impact of their bandwidth. I mean, you got a 20 gig. Your 20 meg. You're not.
Yeah, but my message, to the extent there are brand advertisers, watching out here, I think, this SI cover is a seminal moment in terms of what's culturally acceptable, and that this is really an indication that we've moved a line. Things.
Well, but so the GoDaddy ad in the Super Bowl. GoDaddy is known for their.
Yeah, but they stopped. They didn't show it to you. Yeah.
No. Forget the fact that whatever they did offline, did offline. But in the Super Bowl, they showed a very touching small business owner ad. They totally stepped back. Yeah.
Next year, they're going to show more seconds of. They'll show Danica Patrick. Actually, they do suggestive things, and we're trying to lure you to go to their website.
Right.
And that to me was as much a strategy. They were trying to drive web traffic. And for the guy going, I want to see more. It was probably a very effective ad campaign. What stopped them from not showing more on the commercial wasn't any sense of morals and taste and getting ready to do more tasteful commercials. They were trying to lure people to click through, and I think. What's happened now is we're exposed to so much on the internet that things that were considered shocking before,
right,
are no longer shocking. And it's an interesting discussion that has, I don't want to get into it today, but broad societal implications. The whole question of the pilot who got burned alive by ISIS. Fox actually showed the video, and I used to be one of those people who said, it's tasteless and it's crossed the line and we don't need to see that. I'm almost sympathetic to an argument that says there's very little that crosses a line today. Maybe people need to see the reality, that if we just talk about it compared to showing it, it's one thing. But, I think we're in a world that, our standards, because everything is so universally available on the internet, that the lines between, NSFW, not suitable for work kinds of things, we're moving way over, just as movies. I remember seeing A Clockwork Orange when I was 17. I snuck in, it was X-rated. There are a whole bunch of things that were X-rated back then that today would be barely PG-13 kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah. And I think we're just seeing something where we've hit across some standards and we're now shattering those standards. And I think you're just going to see more of this attention-grabbing stuff on the internet.
Well, continuing along with the advertising, I know you're an auto aficionado fan, and it used to be about, we who grew up in the 70s, it was about MPG.
Or grew older, anyhow.
Grew older. It was all about, everything was about MPG, or it was luxury.
or HP. Not Hewlett Packard, horsepower.
Horsepower, or horsepower, right.
Get your mind out of technology, horsepower.
Horsepower. Today, do I want Wi-Fi in my van? In my minivan? Is that like something I need to have?
How old are your kids?
No. But
how old are your kids?
No, absolutely.
Yeah. How old are the girls?
But
do you need Wi-Fi in the minivan? What are they doing in the back seat?
But I guess this is where there's a convergence of technology. I have Wi-Fi in my minivan.
Yes, but how many people think you've actually got to activate your hotspot if you want to feed, a Wi-Fi only tablet, if you don't want to consume bandwidth. And the short answer is we have.
Well, how do they work? I mean, are you paying? Don't you you have to pay for a wireless plan?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you're using your bandwidth, a different.
Yes, different bandwidth. Yeah, but I think it has to do with what are the expectations? I mean, you used to you started the conversation. You said it's about MPG or HP. Now people the number of kids under the age of 25 who don't own a car is up precipitously.
Right.
That they don't view transportation the same way I did. It was liberating. I enjoyed, the experience of driving. Now, at the risk of a gross generalization, they view it as functional, getting from one place to another. They're inconvenienced when they don't have access to the infrastructure they've got at home or in class. And extending that into the automobile, how do we integrate that environment? Cars are an interesting challenge, and one of the things, it used to be car lead times are really funny when it comes to technology. I mean, these things take years to develop. When OnStar came out, one of its immediate problems was it's generations old technology. So I had a 1X connection in a 3G world, and then they upgraded it to, because it takes them years to go through all of the testing and evaluation and planning for the platforms. And they and the airlines industry, both transportation is just coming around to something the corporate world has had to deal with for years, and it's called BYOD. Right. I'm going to bring my own technology environment into the car, and what can the car do to enhance and augment my experience? So I want to play my music, through. I don't want to pay their ridiculous GPS system, but I want to take advantage of the display that may be bigger than the display on my phone. And so I think we're going to see increasingly cars and planes both. United, several of the airlines now, you can, instead of using their seat back display, you can take advantage of the Wi-Fi on the plane to stream their entertainment to your device. So
I was in Toronto a couple months ago, and I didn't buy a data plan for Canada. And I'm taking the car from the airport to my hotel.
How much did it cost?
I didn't know. I didn't use any data.
Okay.
I sat there twiddling my thumbs. I looked out the window.
Wow.
But my expectation was, I go to anywhere I go, if I expect that there's going to be a Wi-Fi that I can plug into it. I mean, we're dealing in a world of still, mobile bandwidth scarcity. So
yes,
you have this, can I find a Wi-Fi mentality?
I don't know that it's mobile bandwidth. I think some of it is artificial, that we've got pipe holders, and that'll lead us to a whole other discussion.
No. When I say scarcity, it's I have to monitor. I don't monitor.
Yes.
Yes. I used to have to monitor my minutes.
Yes.
My cell phone minutes.
Yeah.
I don't. I used to have to monitor my texts.
Yes.
So we're in abundance. We're in mobile.
Yes.
Minute. Mobile call. You can is unlimited.
Yes.
Mobile text. But we're in a bandwidth.
Yes.
Bandwidth scarcity.
Yes.
That's what I mean. It's not a term. Not so.
Yeah, and it's not bandwidth scarcity per se. It's metered bandwidth.
Metered.
We can argue about capacity availability versus the carrier's desire to extract money for that capacity.
But I also, what you said about walking into a car, I expect that I can answer my calls, I can play my music, I can do it should all, because I already have my custom stuff is here.
Yes.
I don't need to, one of the things my father complained about is that he couldn't pair his phone with his car. He had a Ford something or other, I can't remember. And it doesn't work with your phone. And he had an old non-smartphone. And that's, I'm bringing my communications with me.
Yes.
My information, everything. And the car should just be a way to amplify it. It should be a display and an I/O.
Yeah, that's going to be the role, I think, of the phone increasingly. Hotel rooms. Are more and more, the TV is the TV, but they're having these multimedia panels so you can use it as a monitor and so on. And I think increasingly, you'll think of the phone as containing your own personal configuration parameters. So, what are the set of services and capabilities I want to be able to extend into my car, into my plane seat, into my eyeglasses, into my work service. I should have an app that
goes into, when I get into the car, it knows what my seat position should be, and for the adjustment.
Yes.
Even something like that.
Yes, and
it should know.
And it would work with a rental car as well as your own personal car. Right. Yes, whatever your friend's car. Whatever. That's the game changer. Right. Yes, and make no mistake about it. That's the world we will have. I'll make I'll overstate it in the short term.
So if I was Zipcar, that would be the technology I'd want to start, because that would be something that would be a differentiator, so that you walk into it and this car now knows who you are.
Yes, right now you walk into it and it unlocks, it physically unlocks. What does it mean to virtually unlock the environment? Yes.
It knows what you like, the temperature settings in the car. It knows whatever.
Yes. And all of this stuff, requires no breakthroughs in technology. We could do that easily today with, a few interface components in the automobile. And I love that vision of the world, that everything. I remember, the early mid-90s when Bill Gates first built his home, this tour de force in Lake Washington, outside of Seattle. When you went to visit the home, and it's not like Bill and I are drinking buddies. This was something, as industry analysts, we were getting schmoozed, but you got an ID with an RFID chip. And as you walked from room to room, one of the things you encoded it in were, what are your artistic preferences? What are your musical preferences? And you'd walk into a room, and based on who was in the room and so on, picture frames would change the art, the music would change, and you had a configurable living environment based on the
hotels.
Yeah.
Hotels, absolutely.
Yeah. I think this whole notion of a configurable world, but back to the dark side again. Got to share a lot of information to be able to do that. Yeah.
And one piece I want to touch on before we end this is that there's the risk. One story I tell is that a friend of mine had a Tesla, and the Tesla had this thing where it changes its height and the suspension based on, and they pushed out an update because they were having issues with the battery or something, sparks. They pushed out an update that disabled that function. Now that's a consumer issue, but there's also the fact that they can control your car.
Police today with OnStar, I don't know what process they need to go through, but there's effectively a kill switch. You know, if somebody's driving a GM OnStar equipped vehicle and the police want to stop the high-speed chase, you know, they can
OnStar, can you just stop that?
Yeah. But and that's a arguably benign situation that carries with it lots of risks. You know, do you want, under what conditions and where will it stop? Having cars stop while doing 80 miles an hour on the interstate, invite rear-end collisions. When you start thinking about the malicious potential for these kinds of things, so and it goes to, I think, in general, and we've talked about this before, design considerations for software. You know, this is something that, you know, we can make all the exhortations we want. When you're a software developer, what are you thinking about first? You're thinking about feature completeness.
Right.
You know, security architecture is oftentimes a distant second, if not a, you know, oh, don't let that stop V1, an MVP world, minimum viable product. You know, let's get it out the door. We'll worry about that later.
Because if I don't have any customers, then it doesn't matter whether it's secure because I can't.
Yeah, and you know, I think we're in an environment where, you know, we're starting to see some of the really significant risk components, you know, of something like that, especially in a world, you know, to use some, you know, battle considerations. We used to live in a world of mutually assured destruction. You know, China wouldn't do it to us, we wouldn't do it to them, because the consequences for both of us were so ugly to consider. You know, these things are, you know, we're exposing risks for which there's no commensurate response.
And also the players who were capable of creating that destruction were minimal. Were much, that group of players was smaller. Meaning, now a kid with some scripts can, you know.
You know, not even, you know, with Google, you know, I honestly have never searched those things, but you know, I imagine if you search, you know, shut down nuclear reactor, you'll probably get some fair number of results that show you how to do those kinds of things.
All right, we got a few minutes left. I want to get to some. We have a lot of special features this week.
We do.
Well, we have an update on a shame on you, which I think we need to start with.
The shame on you, if you remember, one of the Marriott properties, the Gaylord down in Nashville, I believe. Was it Nashville? I think.
Or was it DC?
Or was it Texas? It wasn't DC.
It was Texas. Okay.
Yeah, but somewhere decided that customers bringing their own Wi-Fi, using their phones as Wi-Fi hotspots, was actually causing them to lose money because they weren't paying the exorbitant rate for hotel internet. So their solution to that was, let's block the Wi-Fi signal. And you know, to the FCC's credit, they said, really stupid idea, and fined them a lot of money. So what Marriott did, they teamed together with Cisco and actually started to petition the FCC saying, change your rules to allow us to do that. You know, as you might imagine, that was not a good public relations move.
No.
Yeah. So they stepped back and said, we give up. You know, anybody who believes they've given up, you're kidding yourself. So I'm sure what they've decided, the smarter way to do it, rather than wage a losing public relations campaign, is wage a winning lobbyist campaign. Right. You know, and they're still certainly trying to see if they can get the FCC to change rules to you know, block internet and make it based on, oh, they're interfering with service or something like that. So, you know, those of you who think, oh, wow, we won and Marriott had to back off, I do not believe it for an instant. They just got smart and decided the best way to do it is in a way that we don't see what they're doing. You know, the American way, lobbyist.
All right, so a couple of pet peeves. You've got one, I've got one I want to talk about too. What's your pet peeve for the week?
Yeah, unsubscribe requests. You know, How many times you subscribe to something and they immediately have you on the database list? You unsubscribe from it and you get a notification saying, we will process it in 1 to 3 weeks.
Or, right, or a month or whatever, right?
Yeah. And oh, by the way, I'm even seeing some now, cynical person that I am, they go, ha, ha, ha. They don't really mean that. They won't notice. You know, months go by and you're still subscribed. It's like the same mechanism that lets them put you in the database immediately can let them take you out of the database immediately.
Right.
You know, and they're just trying to, you know, say, do you really mean it? Or, you know, the corollary pet peeve to that is I've unsubscribed and they send me an email saying I've unsubscribed. It's like, no, I know I unsubscribed. I asked you to not send me
No,
email.
I like the ones that say, please enter your email to unsubscribe.
Yes. Yeah.
But you know who I am.
Yes.
You sent me an email. I
Yeah.
don't need to enter that.
Yeah, but everything is about making it more difficult and giving you another opportunity to subscribe.
Well, a corollary to that is I use a separate email address for LinkedIn. And so I know when people spam me on that address and put me on lists because I've never signed up with anything for it.
Even better than that, you know, here's a Gmail trick that you may or may not know. If with a Gmail address, you can put a plus sign and any string of characters after the plus sign. It will address the email back. It'll just show up in your general email account, but you can do things like filter on it. So I might go, you know, Yarmis plus signed up at yahoo@gmail.com.
That's awesome.
And anything that comes back to me with the plus, you know, I know where Yahoo shared my information.
It's like putting a drop of
Yeah.
dying in water
Yeah.
and seeing where it goes. You can see where it shows up.
Yeah, so you know, you can put a plus sign.
Tracers.
Yeah, you know, so that you can see the source. You know, it's all coming into your inbox, but you can see what the originating source was.
It's a spam tracer.
Yes, yes.
A spam
What
tracer.
can you do with that afterwards?
Well, the question was, what can you do with that afterwards? Among other things, you know, so I'm not going to share my information, you know, identify them as bad people. B is, you know, I'm a person who lives with Gmail rules. It automatically filter things, move them into folders and so on. Yeah. And I might know that this is, you know, everything that comes from this one is going to be something spammy that I don't want. So I'll automatically set a filter that says anything that's got the string plus came from Yahoo, spam, you know, blah, 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 gets deleted. I'll never see it in my inbox. So you can use it as a identification mechanism and a shaming mechanism and a filter mechanism.
I have to, I'm going to have to try that.
Wow, you know, the educational portion.
Well, yeah, actually, we have a lot of education. You have some interesting factoids.
Yes. So, you know, this is one. We're coming at pitchers and catchers. You know, the Met truck left Citi Field to head down to Port St. Lucie. Pitchers and catchers report.
I call this is the great void. The time between the end of football season and when
baseball season begins.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I know there's some other sports being played, but I'm not really clear what those are.
Yeah. You know,
something with a couple of guys in shorts and something.
Although it's you know, and shorts is a relative term.
I think there's boxing, but it's on ice.
Yeah, called hockey.
Right.
Hockey.
Okay. Boxing on ice.
Anyhow, you know, just came across this one. The slowest pitch to reach home plate. You know, if you're standing on the pitcher's mound and you want to reach home plate, what's the slowest pitch you can throw to reach home plate? And the answer is 30 miles an hour. You know, that if you toss it at a 45-degree angle at 30 miles an hour, it reaches home plate. Anything, you know, a steeper angle, it'll fall short. A lower speed, you know, it'll fall short. So 30 miles an hour, 45-degree angle is the slowest pitch you can throw and reach home plate.
I think I could hit 30 on the jugs gun.
Yeah, I'm pretty convinced I can reach 30. I'm not, you know, that 60 feet is.
That's 60 feet.
Yeah. Although I guess maybe that suggests that I've got an angular problem and not a velocity problem.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's right.
These personal matters. The other thing, you know, Apple got a lot of cash on hand. $175 billion. You know, and oh, by the way, you know, interestingly, you may have seen they sold some bonds in Switzerland. You know, and I guess the reason why they did that, with all that's going on in the Swiss franc, you know, when you can sell bonds that carry a 0% interest rate, you're getting free money. So they got $1 billion in free money on top of the $175 billion. And to put $175 billion into context, that's $550 for every American. That's $25 for every human being on Earth. Apple's got a lot of money.
And they were almost dead.
Yeah, yeah. And you could make the argument it's Microsoft that saved them. That, you know, had Microsoft not did the deal that brought Office to the Mac and then some things like that, you know, that Microsoft needed competitors. Those are the antitrust.
No, I was just gonna say, you don't really hear about Microsoft antitrust anymore, do you?
No. Yeah.
But they saved Apple because of the antitrust issue.
Yes, they needed a competitor.
And yet,
boy, that's Microsoft's biggest success.
Well,
perhaps their biggest success of all time. They needed a competitor. They created a company that's got a market capitalization in excess of $700 billion.
And I heard another.
Yeah,
I heard another stat, an Apple stat, which is that they make 93% of the profit in the handset market.
Yes.
The profit.
Yes. Yes.
93%.
Yes. You know, it's a great. There are all sorts of weird computer economics. I mean, it used to be observed that, you know, in the PC manufacturer, you know, business, that about 110% of the profits of PC manufacturers came from Intel co-op payments. That, you know, Intel, you know, every time in a commercial you hear that bing, 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 Intel inside, Intel paid for that. That the computer industry as a whole, without those co-op payments, all of the manufacturers would have been unprofitable.
Wow.
Yeah, you know, they're also, you know, the airline industry, since its inception, is money losing in aggregate.
We pay for it. We pay for airports and all that stuff.
Yeah, you know, and you know, they make money selling tickets, and, you know, actually flying the airplanes is a terrible business. It's gotten better. The price of oil has fallen precipitously. The price of airline tickets has not.
But I think somewhere between 80 and 90% of their expense is fuel.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I want to get to your quotes, but before that, didn't
you have a pet peeve?
Oh, my pet peeve. My pet peeve. You said unsubscribe. Notifications. And so the amount of time you spend turning off the default notifications for apps. You install an app and suddenly you're getting all sorts of, and it's almost not worth it.
It even bothers me. It's bad enough when you install an app, but when you update an app. Yeah. I've already set my preferences.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I did here on this MacBook, I did the Yosemite, and suddenly I'm getting things are popping up all over the screen. Yeah. I'm like, and I couldn't figure out how to turn them off. Very frustrating.
Yes.
How do you turn them off on the notifications?
Yeah, very carefully.
But it was crazy. Before we get to these quotes, the app you love, I want to hear about that, because I'm always talking. I'm a Mac guy, but I want to know why you love this app.
Why I love Google now? Because it just does things intelligently. It behaves the way you want to. So I get emails and it automatically populates my calendar. It knows where I am. It knows where I'm going because it knows my calendar. It sees you when
you're sleeping.
Yeah, it sees you when you're good. Yeah.
Bad and good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. But things like I'll get notifications saying, leave now for your meeting. You know, and it's doing it based not only on knowing where I am and knowing where I'm going, but it knows traffic conditions. It even, to some extent, you know, you can kind of set preferences.
Right,
so if I'm taking public transportation versus driving,
then we're going to have to put this one on. I want to hear more about this, because this is actually all about the context. We're running out of time. I want to talk about you've got some cool quotes.
Yeah.
Before we leave you with the quotes, just a reminder, this is part of my disruption. We are here the second Friday of every month. You're welcome to join us in beautiful downtown Stamford, Connecticut at the Stamford Innovation Center, or online on Google Hangouts. And so now our quotes of the month.
Yeah, two. One, saw somebody on Bloomberg TV, and I love this. It said, somebody surveys that 97% of the top 100 companies in the world have been hacked. The other 3% just haven't admitted it. The answer is, we talk about this a lot. We haven't talked about the anthem hacking, which I think is an interesting one. But the bottom line, it's a cat and mouse game. And, the cats are often ahead of the mice, and the mice are playing catch up, and ever be it thus. And the other is, related to, Cuba and its, newfound openness. Netflix is coming to Cuba. So the 3% of people with high-speed internet, can actually, but the quote I saw again on Bloomberg TV, and if you haven't figured it out, I watch a lot of Bloomberg TV during the day. Give them a shout out for by far the most intelligent, literate, stuff on TV. It's not a minute and a half of 7-Up screaming talking heads, but really smart people devoting time to issues. But the quote was, I don't think the Cubans are going to tweet their way to a Jeffersonian democracy.
There you have it. So I'm Alan Berkson, and
I'm Jonathan Yarmis, Dr. Disruptive.
Dr. Disruptive, and thank you for joining us for part of my disruption. We'll see you next time.